So this week we're going to be starting to explore landscapes. And one of the really cool things about landscapes is you can fool the eye to believe that there is some three-dimensional space on a flat piece of paper. So in this video, I'm going to give you three different techniques that you can use to create an illusion of three-dimensional space. We're also going to talk about how to break that space up and how you can use foreground, middle ground, and background to create a space that is all your own. So as we look at landscapes, one of the best things to do is look at landscape photography. This is going to give us an idea of how to organize our drawing. So even though you won't be taking a photograph for this week, we're going to use it as a reference to identify these three tips and tricks. So let's start with number one, how to organize the space. So one of the things I want you to pay attention to is what object or feature in this landscape is closest to you. You're probably thinking the trees. The trees look like if you were the photographer, they were right in front of you. These trees right here, these tall vertical trees are in fact the closest thing to you. And there's a couple ways that you can know that. The first thing and the first tip of this is that things that go from the bottom to the top go from the front to the back. So if you are drawing a landscape, usually things that are near the bottom edge of your drawing are going to be closest to you, and things that are near the top edge of your drawing are going to be farther. So things tend to go away as they go from bottom to top. The second detail that I want you to focus on is how much of this tree you actually can see. You can pretty much see each branch and needle. As you go farther away into these different areas of trees, though, they not only appear smaller, but they appear less detailed. So the second tip is to make things that are farther away less detailed, and things that are closer to you more detailed. The final tip and trick is focusing on the color or value, so whether it's lighter or darker. And objects that tend to be closer to you tend to be darker. Objects that are farther away tend to be lighter. So this is what we call atmospheric perspective, and it's that idea that if you've ever looked through fog, things get a little bit hazy, they get soft edges, they're not as clean or crisp. So if you are drawing an object that is in the front, it's going to be really detailed, really crisp, and really dark. If it's farther away, it's going to be kind of hazy, it's not going to have as much details, and it's going to tend to be lighter. So as we think about that depth, we're thinking about the distance from front to back. And it all starts with you and your eyeball, what you're seeing right in front of you. So in that example we just looked at, the first thing you're going to encounter is the tree. Then the lake would be behind that, and that's getting smaller and less detailed. And then the farthest thing away is the mountains. So you can kind of think about it as a progression. If you walk forward, what's the first thing you encounter? What's the second thing you encounter? And what's the third thing you encounter? As we start thinking about this, there's actual names for how we organize this space. That which is closest to us is called the foreground. This is the area that's closest, darkest, and most detailed. So our trees, seeing the bark, seeing the leaves, the needles, anything in front of us, we're going to see the most detail. As we move back, we're going to encounter the middle ground, both in this drawing and in the example we looked at before. That's going to be the lake. So losing less detail, it's rising, it's about in the middle of the paper. And then as we transition into the background, that's going to be the farthest on the paper. Notice that it's farther from that bottom edge. It's also going to be the highest in the drawing and the lightest, so using that atmospheric perspective. So as you're setting up your landscape, put the things that are closest to you near the bottom, make them bigger, add lots of detail in them, make them dark. And as things get farther away, they're going to go near the top of the paper. They're going to get lighter and less detailed. A great example of atmospheric perspective is here. You can see, and if any of you have ever been driving through the valley, you have probably noticed that the mountains closest to you are going to be the darkest, and as it goes back, things slowly get lighter as they go away. So now that you have these three tips and tricks, you're going to want to create your own landscape.